Hey everybody, Josh here, and welcome to the Go Therefore podcast. Today I had the privilege of sitting with Andy Byers. He's the pastor at Calvary Baptist in Roswell, New Mexico. He's also a podcaster. He's a co-host of the Phileo podcast and a co-host of the Raise the Roof, Remove the Walls podcast. You know, when I started to do a podcast, it's easier than what you think it would be, but that doesn't mean that it's easy or it's without questions. And Andy was a huge mentor to me in this, and he was very gracious and very patient, and he helped me with different problems I had. I could text him and call him, and he walked me through a lot of things. Him and a random person I met at the mall named Corey, but that's a story for the other time. Anyway, I sat down with Andy today, and we discussed the gospel. We discussed his time in the ministry. We discussed missions. We discussed podcast and podcasting and that impact on the gospel. Anyway, we had a great conversation. I really enjoyed getting to know him and hear things about him, and I hope that you do as well. So enjoy.
Thank you, Jesus, for this podcast. Please use it to reach somebody lost.
And Jesus came and said to them, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit." Well, I didn't know it was a book until I listened to y'all's show on that.
I didn't realize it was the same guy that wrote, there was a book for The Martian, the Matt Damon movie, same author.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, I didn't know that till Troy brought that up, so.
Yeah, at some point I'll probably go watch it. I like to listen to you guys on there. It reminds me of, I have a friend, he's passed away, but his name was Lewis. And me and that guy, we used to go on, we called them death rides because we worked for Schwann's. And we would have to take the trucks that were no good. And it was always something crazy. It was always, hey, the tires might fall off. Or
Like, it's not like, oh, the air conditioner doesn't work. No, this is like, when this stops working, you're going to die in this car. That's awesome.
There's a propane leak. So we spend hours on the road. And you talk about the same movie. So I get a kick out of that. And then the one you had told me about from there, the rewatchables.
Oh, yeah. They're
that guy, when Talladega Nights came out, and we worked at Schwann. So if we weren't together on one of these death rides, his goal in life was to catch you trying to leave the depot yard, and then he would jump up on your running boards and he would do the whole speech. "Oh, you're my best friend."
You're my best friend. That's awesome.
Yeah. He was a good guy. He died a couple of years ago in San Antonio. He had a heart attack.
Oh, man.
But anyway, if you're ready, we'll get rolling here.
Let's do it.
This is Josh, and welcome to the Go Therefore podcast. I'm here today with Pastor Andy Byers. How you doing today, Andy?
I'm good. Good to be here.
Good deal. So let me ask you. I know you're from New Mexico, but where did you grow up here?
I'm from all over. I got the whole state covered in a lot of ways. I moved to Artesia when I was 1. I wasn't born here. That's all I got. Otherwise, I'm a New Mexico kid. But moved to Artesia when I was 1. Was there for 10 years. So elementary school, and then moved up to Kirtland, the Four Corners area outside of Farmington. Middle school, high school, and then went to college in Albuquerque. Have spent enough time in Eagle Nest, New Mexico that I think it counts. Both me and my dad spent years taking youth groups there to do mission trips. So I think collectively I have some citizenship or something probably in Eagle Nest.
That's
but
your home,
yeah, I'll claim that one too.
Yeah. Where were you born?
New Iberia, Louisiana. The original home of Tabasco sauce.
Oh yeah, that's so
yeah.
Is that because was your dad a pastor there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wound up, because of the Army, I wound up born in Kansas, and I don't think we spent more than 2 seconds.
Right? I've never been back. Like,
right.
You're like, do you remember it? Like, no, I was a year old when we moved. I only remember New Mexico. So.
Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about Kansas. My daughter recently moved to Missouri, and she was driving through there, and she says, "Oh, I'm in your hometown." She told me I'm in Manhattan, Kansas. I said, well, good for you.
Good for you.
I can't tell you nothing about it.
You know more about it than I do now, right?
Yeah, I can't tell you what restaurant to go look at or anything else. So the moving around, is that your dad's a pastor?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Retired now, but yeah, we were in Artesia for 10 years. He was in Kirtland for 13. So he was there for a while after I left, and then went to Deming. And then he moved to Elephant Butte, where he retired. My parents still live there, and but that was too close. We were back within 2 hours, and so we joked like, okay, we got to move to Roswell now. We need that 3-hour cushion. That's for everybody else's sake, not for me and my dad. But
And then you and your dad have one that I listen to every week too. That raise the roof, remove the walls, or did I say it backwards?
no, you nailed it. That was it. That's the thing my dad's been using for a long time. Kind of the idea that we don't put God in a box. Like we raise the roof, remove the walls. We bust it open and give him the praise he deserves. And so he started doing a bunch of that stuff during COVID. And then when he retired, we started doing the podcast. And he does a weekly thing on his Facebook page of the same name, Raise the Roof, Remove the Walls. He does every Tuesday you can find him on video teaching something on his page. And every Thursday our podcast comes out. And so those are fun.
Prior to COVID, did y'all do a lot of the technology things?
No, not really. During COVID, he started teaching. He taught every day, 5 days a week. He was doing video teaching when we were in shutdown, and he kept doing that for a while, even after things went back, because he kind of enjoyed it and got some good response from some folks, and it's kind of just evolved. Once you learn some of those things, it's like, hey, we can keep doing this. This is easy now. Now I know what I'm doing. I got the basics out of the way. So
was it something that you guys had to figure out, or did y'all have like a kid running around? Or
no, that was mostly us. I have another podcast that you mentioned. Me and my friend Troy started one. That one started first, and that one, he and I have some podcasts that we really love, and we would call each other and talk about them. Like we were basically just rehashing all this stuff anyway. But let's just say they're not kid friendly in their approach to things. They talk about movies and sports, but they talk in ways that we're like, I can't do this with the kids in the car, especially at that point. My kids are like, as my kids say all the time, like, Dad, we go to public school. Like we're not freaking out. I'm like, I know, but it's different. I don't need you to hear it. I don't like listening to it around you either. So it's just weird. But we were like, we could do some of the same stuff, but we could do it so, people don't have to turn it off when their kids in the car. So, and so we kind of just got started and talking about Star Wars and sports and I from there.
Back,
so
whenever you told me about it several months ago or whenever it was, I started listening from then forward, but I'd kind of gotten back and caught some of the ones like you did the top 10 westerns or
yeah, some of our
from way back.
Oh man, don't go too far back. Some of those we've gone back to listen to a few of the early ones and we're like, wow, I hope we've gotten better than this. I don't know. Some days we have a rhythm, some days we don't. So
it's a good show. I enjoy listening to it. Back to your dad a little bit. So I'm guessing was church the biggest deal in your life as a young person? Or?
Oh yeah, you hear people say stuff like, "We were there every time the doors were open." I'm like, "That's nice. I opened the door for you." That was my life as a kid, and that's just how we did. Our family just did ministry together a lot of the time. He was a youth pastor. When we were in Artesia, and before that, anywhere we were. And so switched to being a pastor when we went to Kirtland, which was probably good because I was becoming a teenager. So that gave us a proper amount of distance for everybody else to not have to deal with the two of us. Because we can butt heads, but we can also just be of the same mind and annoy everyone else. And we're perfectly fine with ourselves, but everybody else is getting driven nuts. But we did stuff as a family. Big thing when we were in Artesia, when he was there, one of the big things they did a free lunch for high school kids because Artesia has open campus. So every Wednesday, when I was little, dozens of high school kids came to my house for lunch. I thought it was the greatest thing ever when I was like 4 because clearly they're here for me. I mean, lunch is nice, but they came to hang out with me so I can show them all my stuff and things like that. So, but yeah, we did that stuff and went on mission trips, and that was life. It was great. So.
Do you remember some of the first places you went as a kid on these mission trips?
We went from Artesia to Minnesota when I was 3, and I have a couple vague recollections. We found there was a McDonald's in Des Moines, Iowa that had an indoor playground.
Yeah,
and that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life as a little kid. We went up there. The pastor that we had been with in Louisiana became a DOM in Minnesota, and so that's how we ended up going up there for that trip. That was a long trip. At least they tell me it was. I basically just remember that. And there's actually a gun on that, a toy Han Solo gun down on one of the bottom shelves over there. That came from the Mall of America on that trip when I was 3. The youth group kids bought me that gun, and it still worked until about 5 years ago if you could find the right batteries for it.
Yeah.
But we've been all over. We did, like I said, Eagle Nest. I think we went for 7 straight summers and did VBS in Eagle Nest.
Oh, nice.
Always around the 4th of July. It's a cool place to be that time of year. So,
How does that work logistically as a pastor's kids or as a family in ministry? Are the adults talking and then you're playing with the other kids and y'all talk, or how does
sometimes it would vary. Sometimes I would just be hanging out with the kids and doing worship and doing stuff. And sometimes, I'd get a little freedom to run off and be like, okay, you're doing your thing. And of course, this is back in the day, so there was a little more freedom anyway. You didn't worry like, he's around here somewhere.
Yeah.
We don't have quite that same freedom. But yeah, I was there in the middle of a lot of stuff. Not everything. My fun story about my dad. He resigned on a mission trip. Told the kids first before he talked to anybody. Felt like God was telling him that it was time to move on and become a pastor and maybe plant a church and do some stuff. And so just says that, like, we did VBS in the morning, we'd have like devotion worship stuff at night with the kids. And they were doing devotion worship stuff one night, and he just tells them that in the middle without saying a word to my mother, who's in the room. And I'm not even in the room. I'm off playing because there was another kid. His mom was one of the adults, and so we were outside or something. And the kid worship gets over, and I hear kids walking back. You think Joe's really leaving? And I'm like, what are they talking about? And so my parents woke me up in the middle of the night that night, and we're like, hey, we need to talk to you. Like, here's what your dad just did. It was fun though, because he goes afterwards and tells my mom. He's like, okay, sorry, God. She's like, that's okay. He told me already. He just told me not to tell you. So she was prepared for it. But yeah, he resigned right there, and then we went home at the end of the week, and he told our pastor, who's now my father-in-law. So, and he was like, what now? But he quit, and we spent almost a year from that time, most of my 5th grade year. He was looking for a job. He substitute taught, and we're still living in Artesia, but he wasn't on staff of the church anymore. So, as a 5th grader, looking back, it was a really fun experience because I was clueless about the really stressful things, right, and it was hey, we're just following Jesus on this cool thing. Like that's about the time that Stephen Curtis Chapman came out with The Great Adventure, right? That was like our theme song. Like we're on this adventure. We have a family joke about taking the scenic route. We don't just take the normal, like, oh, I get a job and then I go here, and no, we're going to quit and wait 9 months and wander around. And
while you were wondering, like, what would happen to us? Your dad would fill in for preachers, or
he would he literally he substitute taught at the schools that year, just to keep making money. And my mom was doing that for a while, and then ended up getting a secretary job, had a business there, and so. God really took care of us is the real story, because there would be days where like money just showed up in our mailbox and stuff, and we always had. I mean, we had some ideas about here's a short list of people that might have done that, but most of the time we didn't even know. I'd like check the mail when I got home from school and be like, Mom, there was another envelope full of money in there, you know. And they had just seen me eat, so people were just feeling bad for my parents at that point.
Well,
like, we got to keep that kid fed.
We're in the same club as far as that goes. Did you know when you were a kid and going on the different things with your dad or watching your dad and hearing things, did you know at that point you were going to go into this?
Oh gosh, no. This was a kicking and screaming kind of thing, and with my dad's support for the kicking and screaming. You know, I know there's probably lots of people out there. Oh, your dad's probably so happy you're a minister. I'm like, he is now, but when it started, there was a lot of, are you sure? Because this isn't the easiest job to have. This isn't the easiest life to do all the time. You know, there's a lot of tough things about being in ministry, and I had been around for those because I was behind the scenes. I don't know how all ministers' homes are, but we had a pretty open house. That there was not. I wasn't shielded from everything that this is what we're dealing with, and sometimes it's messy, and that's just how it is. And so no, I had gone to college. I was going to teach and coach. That was the goal. That's what I wanted to do: coach football and basketball and stuff. That was That was where I was headed. And spent a couple years at UNM, and kind of had some. High school, I got really good grades, was really high in my class, played sports, did all this stuff. I was the small town preacher's kid, and so I thought I had this whole identity, and went off to college. And well, when you go from really small town to 30,000 student university, like, okay, well, no more small pond. I'm nobody academically here anymore. I wasn't playing sports anymore, and went through some stuff, just kind of my own, working some things out with fear and trembling, to steal a quote from Paul. Was just kind of making a mess of myself in a lot of ways, and kind of hit this point where I was like, God, what am I doing? And he's like, I still love you just as much down here. You thought you were special. Like, you thought the stuff that you did was what made me love you. Like, that wasn't it at all. And it was kind of that moment that really kind of changed a lot of the trajectory for me. It wasn't, I always wanted to do this. It was, I learned this about myself, that all this religious stuff, all these, quote, good things that I did, that's not what made me special to God. Just being me, just existing, was what made God love me. And I wanted to tell people that. I was taking classes to teach, and I had taken, at some point, I think it was after, I ended up taking the semester off from school, and coached football, coached a little basketball before I left, substitute taught. The head football coach's wife was in charge of calling subs for one of the elementary schools, so I stayed busy, albeit with little kids, which are not really my thing. I like the bigger ones that understand sarcasm, but there's nothing like a giant man walking into a class of like second graders, and they're just like, yeah, hi, Mr. Big Guy. That's what half the classes called me. They didn't know my name, but loved coaching. Even didn't necessarily like the elementary kids, but I liked the schedule. I liked, hey, I go do this all day, and then we go do this. And loved that stuff. But while I was there, I taught and did some stuff with the youth at my dad's church, at my old church, and I hated it. Yeah. I hated it. They were awful. I came to fully understand and appreciate that a prophet has no honor in his hometown. Like that verse has deep meaning for me after trying to lead things there. And so I went back to UNM after a semester, dead set. All right, coaching, teaching. I had a whole plan because I coached freshman football primarily. And so I was like, I want to graduate in time to be back home for those kids when they're seniors and get to coach them again, because I loved the kids I got to coach and stuff. And first week I'm back at school, needed to go look for a job to, help pay the rent and stuff. And I get a call from a friend of mine who had just moved to Albuquerque. She worked for the convention. She'd started going to Del Norte Baptist in Albuquerque. And she's like, hey, our church is looking for a youth pastor, and pastors called down to the BSU, and yours was one of the names that came up, and they kind of connected the dots. They know I know you. And so would it be okay if they called you? And I spoke in tongues because everything inside me was like, no, absolutely not. I do not want anything to do with a youth group ever again. Me and Jesus are cool. I don't want to lead anything. And I said yes. And then I got home and called my dad and said, I just spoke in tongues and said yes to this. I don't want to do this. And he's like, I'm fine, you don't want to do that. And I met with the pastor. And again, I just kept saying yes. And I gave answers that they liked to stuff. I still don't know. And I ended up being the youth pastor of that church for 13 years. So it kind of shifted. It kind of changed. But it was actually one of my teaching classes that we talked about. We read this book called The Courage to Teach that was all about being passionate for the thing you're teaching and wanting your students to learn. I was aiming to being a history teacher at that point, and I'm like, I could do this. I enjoy it. It's nice, but I don't really care if kids know about George Washington and Abraham Lincoln as much as I want them to know about Jesus. And so even when I started working at the church, in my mind, it was like, all right, this is part-time to get me through college and back to what I really want to do. And after a couple of years, there was just there was no more fighting. So then I gave in, and then I was determined to be the longest tenured youth pastor in the history of the world. I just needed Sam Swan to finally quit so I could catch up. And he didn't forever. So I gave up, and then God brought us here to Roswell. So it's been good.
How did that happen? Did you come here, or did you go to somewhere else in Roswell?
I came here. I've only been on staff at two different churches. I started at Del Norte in college and did that for 13 years, and I've been here for 10 now. So, And it was one of those things. It was funny. This church had looked a couple times during our tenure, and it's Calvary is like 2 blocks from where my father-in-law grew up. Like literally, he grew up on Alameda on the same street, and so my wife's grandparents lived just down the road. I pass their old house every time I go pick my kid up from middle school at Sierra, and so it would be, being the Mexican, there'd be the ad like, "Hey, Calvary's looking for a pastor," and on the joke is always like pastors quit every Monday, right? Like we're done with people for a little bit, and so on some of those Mondays, I'd see those ads and I'd look at my wife and be, "Hey, we go to Calvary in Roswell," and she was always like vehemently like, "No, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that." And we were out to dinner for my daughter's birthday, and she got a text from one of our kids, one of our like small group leaders that was dealing with teenage girl drama, and she just kind of gave this big sigh and was like, "I think I might be done. I don't know if I can do this." Like it was just, and it was a lot of good things actually that kind of prepared us to make that change. Just an example, like we had been doing college Bible study at our house for a few years with kids that we had seen. When you're there for 13 years as a youth pastor, it's awesome because like I have a kid that he was my first 7th grader. Like he was in the first group of kids that were brand new. I was their youth pastor the whole time. I got to see him do middle school, high school, college, grad school. Saw him be baptized. Saw him become a deacon in the church. Did his wedding a couple of years ago. If he happens to hear this, I'm ready for him to have a kid anytime now that he wants. I'll come see that kid too. No pressure, guys. But it was cool to see those things and just get to be there that long. But we'd been doing stuff like college Bible study at our house with them, and they came to me and they're like, "Would it be okay if we start doing Bible study on our own?" And I'm like, yes. Why? This is a scary question. Like you're afraid I'm going to say no. You have to do this with me. And so like they had just kind of they grew up.
Yeah. In fact, I would like you to bring in another group.
And
tell them, and then they will leave you.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, it was kind of just that, and he, that one, his name's Michael, was kind of the prime example of that, because he started leading that Bible study, and it's like, cool. You guys don't need me. Like you've grown, you're there. You need to move past me, and so it was just a lot of cool things. It was just time, and it was nice to come back to Pecos Valley. Artesia, my wife grew up there as well, and then of course her grandparents were here in Roswell. So only thing my father-in-law said was make sure you live on the correct side of town. He was a Roswell Coyote. His grandchildren needed to be Roswell Coyotes. Sure. That was his only request. Yeah, that makes sense. And growing up in Artesia, that wasn't a hard thing to adjust. Like, oh, don't go to Goddard. I'm okay with that. I still that might be the only Bulldog thing I still retain is that like I still don't like blue. So yeah, it's no bueno. So
no, I know that you said your dad was on staff at your father-in-law's church. Did you and your wife y'all ran into each other then, or how did y'all end up dating?
So. I mean, we like we're in the same kindergarten class. I mean, we go back that far. Yeah. There's for part of our graduation kindergarten ceremony stuff, we had this little, I don't even remember what we read, but we still have the little things. Here are my lines as part of the production thing, and we had these lines back and forth with each other. So we go way back, but our dads had still stayed in touch. We're still friends. Occasionally, because he went from being there to being the editor of the Baptist Mexican for 21 years. So they were in Albuquerque. So, if you live in Mexico, you end up in Albuquerque fairly often because that's where everything happens, right? So we'd catch up. We'd go grab lunch with them. And so, I mean, we knew each other. We both went to UNM, but she had graduated before we started even dating or anything. She started coming to our church. She had been going to another church and wasn't really feeling connected there and was looking for somewhere. And actually the same friend that called me up to see if she could give my number to the pastors there several years after that, was working with her dad at the Baptist building. And so she came to church one week just to check things out, ended up going to camp with us as a sponsor that year. And so we kind of reconnected, but nothing really romantic about it in the beginning. And then she was actually leaving, and she was going to teach in Carlsbad. And kind of like the day she was there on a Sunday morning to kind of say goodbye to the kids and see people. And it was like this panic set in. They're like, oh my gosh, she's leaving. And I like stalled like crazy just to like, don't you want to go talk to so-and-so? And so like, I just ridiculousness. And we started talking like the very next day. It's all Pizza Mill's fault, really. Because she went to Pizza Mill in Carlsbad the next day. And there used to be a pizza mill in Artesia that we had fondly remembered. And so she just mentioned that, like, texted me, hey, guess where I'm eating lunch? And I've pretty much talked to her every day since then for the last like 20 something years now. So it just it was a crazy thing that just kind of blossomed into this awesome relationship. So
that's neat. When you were first talking about them working for each other, I was wondering, is this a deal where they kind of like, I'm going to push these two?
Oh gosh, no. No, in fact, it's been really funny because, we had, and if you know anything about First Artesia, like that, for both of us, like that church is still very much family. Like there's still a whole lot of people there that were just awesome. They really taught us how to be the church, even as kids. And so I can't even tell you how many people from that church came up to our wedding and stuff. And it was just, for all of them, it was like, this is so cool, but so bizarre. Like just, this is a trip that like the two of us were getting married. And so it's, lots of people making fun of my father-in-law that now he's stuck with my dad forever. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun.
How did that work logistically at the wedding? Did you go outside of dad's? Did your dad?
Yes, we went outside. We went outside. Number one, we wanted both our dads to just be dad.
Yeah.
And we were good with that. I mean, we could have done either way. Her dad actually baptized me, so it would have been kind of a cool symmetry moment for him to do my wedding. But we played a trump card, and we had Dr. Cone do our wedding.
Oh, there you go.
And so you can't argue with that. That's sure. Like, that trumps everything anyway. So because Dr. Cone does the family weddings on that side. He did when my father-in-law got remarried after his wife passed away. He did that wedding. He did our wedding. He did my sister-in-law's wedding. So it's what we do. Yeah. Even my brother-in-law, my wife's stepbrother, one of them worked with Dr. Cone a little bit when he was at Monterey, and so he prayed at their wedding even. So we're like, okay, you're the blessed one. See, right. And everybody that Dr. Cone did their wedding, we're all still married in the family. So
yeah, well, that's a plus.
Good luck. So he's our rabbit's foot. Yeah, perfect record, at least in our family. So
that's fun. Now having a dad in the business and a father-in-law in the business and all these other people that you've run into, have they been your mentors, or were your mentors outside of there? Who's mentored you in ministry? What ministers have you looked
at? I mean, definitely my dad, most of all. Just personal relationship with Christ stuff has always been that. We had a very, I say open, transparent might be a better word. It's probably the word he would use. Like we had a very transparent home faith-wise, that like, this isn't all easy. This isn't all simple, right. And like, we were very open about struggles and difficult stuff even. And so that's always been a really easy place to go with those things. That was huge. My father-in-law has always been a really cool example of faith. It's awesome to have him around for a lot of stuff too. Especially transitioning and doing some of those things. He's a very understated, he's not I'm gonna come out and give you this direct thing. He's like, for example, before we had our daughter, he would see like articles in the newspaper, something about some parenting thing. He would just leave it at the table where my wife always sat. Like, I'm not going to be direct with this. I'm going to give you these subtle little things, but it's great. Like we'll go visit them, and he's got like the wall library. He's literally got like the ladder to roll around on the bookcase, like in their house, just full of stuff. And he'll just be like, use whatever you want, go for it. And sometimes it's easier to study at their house than it is anywhere else. There's lots of cool stuff. So they're both big, but my BSU director when I was in college and beyond, Ted With, was a huge influence on a lot of things, which was awesome. I mean, my dad's, I joke, I haven't had a pastor that wasn't my boss or that I wasn't related to since I was like 4. And so, but I really have, because I had Ted through all those college years and even beyond. I at one point tried working there. That hit some snags, but tried working with him. But still, I mean, I graduated from UNM over 20 years ago, and anytime I can, I still go hang out with my BSU director and go grab breakfast and stuff, and we
is
get
he
together.
Still currently doing that?
No, he's a pastor in Rio Rancho now. So had a church plant.
Nice.
So they're doing some really cool stuff. But yeah, we're still really close. And then I had pastors I worked with. Kevin Warner was one of our associate pastors when I went to Del Norte, and he and his wife were awesome, just helping me and my wife kind of grow up and get, because I started at that church as a 21-year-old single college student, and by the time we left, I was married with 2 kids, and so there was a lot of personal growth that happened through there, and they were real instrumental in all that. And Judy Hain, the church administrator there, she lined me out and taught me how to behave properly with my church credit card and things like that. Right, she's a real rule follower, but it was always good. I'm always I do stuff for the association for our South Africa trip, and so. Connie down there is always like, "You're so good at bringing me receipts and doing it." I'm like, "Thank Judy Hain. Don't thank me. Here's who you thank for that behavior."
This was beat into me.
Yeah.
Did they help line you out on putting sermons or services together, or is that stuff that translated from teaching?
Some of both. Yeah, definitely. Probably as much from the teaching stuff. And I didn't get too deep into the teaching classes. By the time I was about to start student teaching stuff, I was like, I just want to work at the church. And time to do both was not going to happen. And so that was kind of when it shifted, and I just became a nice, simple history major, which you can do absolutely nothing with, but I already had a job, so it was okay. And so probably a little bit of both. But definitely, I spent enough time listening to my dad's sermons to kind of know what went into those and some of that. But I think it's a little bit of both. But we just kind of, you do something for long enough, you just kind of develop a rhythm of your own and say, okay, I think I feel comfortable here. And they seem to understand what I'm saying. So I think we're doing okay. So I lean on that verse where the disciples get called ordinary, uneducated men, and I'm like, hey, they're good. We're just going to talk about Jesus, and we're going to hope this comes out. So,
are you a let's go through a book kind of preacher, or do you jump around?
No, I'm definitely. I like going through a book more for me than anyone else, because then I know where I'm going. Right. When I first started, I hadn't figured that out yet. When I first came here and started, I got to preach every week now. When you're the youth pastor, it's like maybe twice a year. All right, we got Youth Sunday and some other random week where the pastor's going to be gone. He's like, I want you to preach this week. Okay. And I was not always the smartest about saying yes. The first time I ever preached like a real, true sermon was the day after I got home from my honeymoon, because I'm an idiot. And so we got married and then got back, and it was like Youth Sunday. We got home on Saturday. And Sunday was like Youth Sunday. We're recognizing seniors, and I was like, I'm going to preach this year, because I had my sermon. Like, I knew what I wanted to talk about, and it was probably a rough experience for everybody else. I was on cloud 9. I was just home from my honeymoon. I feel great. I can do whatever. But yeah, it was a learning curve to figure some of that stuff out, and the struggle when I wasn't, of like, okay, what am I going to preach about this week, was like, no, I don't like this. So God's been gracious though, and I've it's been a while since I really struggled. I felt good direction of like, this is a good book. Here's some subject material, and that I spent all of last year preaching through Matthew.
Nice. Yeah.
And so that was great. I'm like, I just got 52 weeks out of one book, and I didn't have to stress about, okay, what's next? Well, the next chapter's next. The next few verses, that's what's next. So.
And they've thoroughly learned
what
they need to out of Matthew.
Right? That's the hope. Every once in a while you test them, right? And you just throw something you already did out, and they're like, that was great. And you're like, yeah, I did that 3 weeks ago too. You just weren't paying attention. All right. Okay. Good to know.
I got the go through the book advice very early on, like almost before I started doing anything, and it came from Herb and from Wayne Brazil. And they told me, you need to go through this. But I was like, well, I'm going to hit a John 21, and I want to hit a David and Goliath and a Joseph, and then I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always certain things like, I really want to do this. And, I use some other times, but like we do Wednesday night Bible study, and that's more topical, and so we get to bounce around a little bit. It's a little more casual. It's just a different setting, but no. So, and I'm not, I know there's people out there that this is the way to do it. You know, they want to make it a spiritual issue. And I'm like, no, this is like an organizational, not driving me nuts issue more than anything. Right. Like, as long as we're coming from the Word of God, then I'm good. And it makes it a lot easier to do it that way, I think. But
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I like doing it that
way.
But I'm not opposed to man, I really want to talk about something today, or if it's Easter or whatever. You know,
and it all connects. Is the really incredible thing. I remember there's a time I had multiple youth group kids that I was like reading and doing some one-on-one discipleship type stuff with, and like we were in very vastly different places. Something like I'm like me and this kid over here, we're reading Jeremiah. I don't remember why we picked Jeremiah. We just wanted a weird Old Testament prophet guy, and like the others are in one of Paul's letters, and I think I was in like Exodus or Leviticus with some, and like all these things would still just connect because it all comes back to the same thing. So it was like, it's always cool how God works those things. I don't even go to the Sunday school class usually. Like I'm not even always aware of where they're at in their study, and I can't tell you how many times like, man, you talked about just what we talked about in Sunday school, and I'm like, that's awesome. That's Jesus, not me. Don't give me credit.
Well, it's awesome how those things work out. I'm always amazed at where I end up and the things that are going on. I mean, I've even on a Mother's Day landed on 2 Peter.
Right?
Wow, this is gonna be fun.
I know. Last year going through Matthew, I had somebody that was because I didn't like jump out of Matthew and do like an Easter, like we're gonna talk about but like we talked about Easter. I mean, we talked about what's important about Easter. Like we talked, and I don't even remember where we were in it, and somebody afterwards, well, I'm not sure if that was quite an Easter sermon. I'm like, what did we talk about? Let's talk about what we actually talked about here. So it all connects. It all works.
God definitely has a plan. And so
yes.
It's just neat to step back and say, oh, you used me in this small way for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting me see how that happened.
Yeah.
Do you remember when you came to faith in Jesus?
Yeah. Vaguely, I was 6, almost 7. Partially, I remember how old I was. We had this awesome lady. She was actually the kindergarten music teacher in our region. Went to our church, and she did this for countless kids. But I have a crochet thing that reminds me of the date. And my wife has the exact same thing from the exact same lady because we grew up. And so she also crocheted us both. We both have stuff from when we graduated from high school with Joshua 1:9 on it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was just a few days before my 7th birthday. We were having I can't remember if it was a full church revival or just a youth revival because those things blend for the youth minister's kid because I'm there all the time. And now it just felt like I need to get saved. I haven't done this, I'd been in church all the time, like I said, but felt that need. Talked to my parents afterwards that night, and so that Sunday I went down to the pastor, my now father-in-law, and shared that with the church and got baptized a few weeks later. And
that's awesome.
First Baptist Artesia is a great church to get baptized in, by the way. That thing is like a swimming pool up there.
Oh, yeah.
Me and another girl our age, Allie, got baptized in it. And like you had to like swim out to the pastor. He's out there standing in the middle of this thing. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Yeah. That's a scary thing for the youth minister's kid to find out because he's going to go look and see if there's water in there every chance he gets after that. I'm just telling you. Because you're the youth minister's kid. You can get away with crazy. Yeah. So.
Ours is it used to be bigger, I guess, but then they put a tub inside of that. But you can tell at one time the pastor would have gotten in there.
Now it's one of those divided things where you're not supposed to get wet,
right.
That never works.
Oh yeah, at all.
Never.
And it's a good excuse to bang someone's head. I've gotten some in there. Bam. Oh man, I had a kid one time. Some survival instincts. Well, I say kid, he's 16, but his survival instincts kicked in on the way down, and I had to.
Got to really hold him down.
Your grandma's here, buddy.
You're going under. It's too late. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, there's no lifeguard here. Trust me.
See, you and I are safe there, though. I mean, it's gonna be a rare person to,
Right.
We're gonna, I've had some pastors. I've seen some guys like, how do you get some of these people out of the water? We get to be a part of baptism sometimes on our South African mission trips with the association, and there was one time he was a pretty big dude. He he wasn't me, but he was up there, and the pastor there is like, Pastor Andy, I'm gonna let you baptize him. Like he's like that one's all yours. Like I can handle that. Okay, I got it.
So me and him are gonna walk over to the Presbyterian church. We're gonna take care of this with a cup.
Right.
We teamed up with some of those ladies to do a block party, and then we get the kids for it used to be an after school thing, but now they don't have school on Friday in Egerman, so we'll get them on a Friday a month. And we were teaming up with those ladies, and they said, "Oh yeah, we need to get together." She says, "Well, maybe we'll come to one of your business meetings." I said, "Oh man, our water bill is going to blow your mind." She referred to it as the spa.
The spa.
They've shut down since then, but we were partnering with them there for a little bit. Yeah, you're mentioning South Africa there. I saw something was it on your Facebook today? You ran into there?
Yeah. So one of the pastors we worked with in South Africa. So our former DOM down here, Fred McDonald, went to the Dakotas, and after he'd been up there a little while, Shagun and his family, who Julius and Cynthia are the primary people we work with in South Africa at Hope Baptist Church, but Shagun had a church down the road, and Julius works with a whole network of pastors to help train and equip, and Shagun was one of the first ones involved with that, and so they actually moved here and went to the Dakotas. He's planted a church, and he does like evangelism training stuff all over that region, that area and stuff, and so he was in Albuquerque for some kind of meeting earlier this week, and so he'd never been this close to Pecos Valley, so he came down and went and saw some folks down in Artesia, and I got to catch him today. He was headed back home, but got to come through Roswell to go north. So that was the first time I'd gotten to see Shagun, and I haven't been since 2022 was my last trip. So it's been a while.
How did those start? Well, I mean, I know how revivals and stuff start, but how did you become involved with the South African mission?
So the association's, this will be 10 years now that the association's been involved. A connection, there's a church in Scottsdale, Arizona that's been working, First Baptist, I think, in Scottsdale, has been working with Julius for a while, and we kind of got wind of that, and found out there was some other needs, some other areas they could use teams to come out, and so 10 years ago, our association sent the first team to go do VBS, and then started sending groups of pastors to go do some pastoral training. And so we used to do those 2 trips every year. And then the aforementioned Fred left to go back to the Dakotas, and he was kind of the leader of those things as our DOM. And so he took the shepherd's training, the pastor's training with him. Like we kind of split the duties because he's developed a really, really close relationship with Julius, the pastor we work with over there, and so he's continued to do those, and we've continued doing VBS. So this will be our 8th time to do VBS over there, and so it's been really great. I mentioned earlier when I talked about subbing, me and little kids, it's not my area. Bless all you people that love little kids or that love babies. I'm like, I loved my babies, and that's about it. Otherwise, I'm like, if you can take it back before I break it. So they did VBS, and I didn't really feel called. I was like, I'm good. VBS is great, but not, my thing. But the second year, they had this idea. It started, we're going to do a sports camp. And so that kind of got mentioned at pastor's lunch, and I kind of waved it off like, sports, it's not in America, it's somewhere else. They'll want to do soccer. Not my thing. I'm 6'5" and weigh over 300 pounds. I am not built for soccer. I'm built for another fall sport. I'm built for a different football than they play. And so didn't think much of it. But then Fred kind of cornered me, caught me in one of those at the end of one of those pastors' lunch. Like, hey, can we talk about that sometime? About that? I just feel, And at the time, I'm like, I'll be polite. But it was probably actually the Holy Spirit just bugging me. And so I get into a lot of things reluctantly, apparently. This is like the theme of my ministry life. But started talking to him, and so he goes, I'm waiting for him to say soccer, and he goes, we really thought, they're actually better at soccer than us. They know more of this stuff. So we're thinking we might do basketball because it's kind of an emerging thing. And I'm like,
you can reach
man, I know how to do that. And then I'm like, he's going to say little kids. He's like, and we kind of thought that maybe we'd keep VBS for the younger kids, but use basketball for the older, like the teenagers and stuff. And I'm like, I like those two. And so ended up going that first year and doing basketball camp, and it was cool. We did it. We learned a lot of things. It evolved in good ways. But had a nice group, 40, 50 kids maybe that came and did some of the stuff for basketball camp. And that year we ran at the same time as VBS, which caused problems because all the little kids just wanted to run away from VBS and come hang out with us. So we learned, okay, we got to split these apart. So we did VBS in the morning, basketball in the afternoon. And that second year we had probably close to 100 kids that would show up. And we were doing it. They had this like big hall. It had like a stage on one end. We used it for all kinds of stuff when we were there. But we set up basketball goals in there. But it was like just barely bigger than a half court. But we had 2 goals. You know, it was a very small space, especially when we had like almost 100 people. So that was 2018 and 19. And then, of course, 2020. COVID hits, and so we don't go back for a couple of years. And so 2022 comes around, and in the interim, we had talked to them about, you know, maybe building a basketball court at their site, and that runs into logistics because the church doesn't own the property they're at, and so we'd kind of worked through some of that. And in the meantime, God knew what he was doing, and we just needed to stay out of the way because he hooked up the pastor with this guy who runs a basketball club, nice. Like traveling team kind of thing, equivalent. And so 2022, we got to go and do stuff with their organization, and took the whole staff from First Artesia that runs all those sports things all the time. So Ben and Ty and Mike and a bunch of their kids, and so ran. I think we had 200 kids at least at this basketball camp out of this park, a couple blocks from the church. It was awesome. Yeah. But they outgrew us in a good way. It became this huge thing, and so that was the last year we did basketball stuff, but. The following year, we started taking on a second VBS, and so we did one at Hope Baptist, where we've been doing it all the time, and now they do a second one in Soweto, which is just outside Johannesburg. It's where Nelson Mandela grew up. Like he learned to box at this YMCA. There's all these stories, and that YMCA is where we've done VBS the past couple of years. So.
And do you break up into different teams when you go there, or you go to this place first, and the next day you all get up and?
We do. We do 3 days of VBS at Soweto, and then 3 days of VBS at Hope. So the whole team's on board, and we need them. Our max size for a team is about 16 with our logistics and where we stay and stuff. This year, right now, we're looking at about 10 or so that are going, and we'll have at Soweto they'll have over 400 kids.
Wow.
And at Hope, we've pushed. I can't remember if they finally cleared 300. It's gotten bigger every year we've gone. Which has been really cool. But a lot of volunteers from South Africa that work with us too. So it's not our 10 people covering all 400 of those kids. Thank goodness we have a lot of help, especially at Soweto. We have translators because they speak. Some of them speak some Zulu and some other stuff. So we have 2 or 3 languages in most classes that get taught there. So it's a really cool partnership, really cool experience. So,
do you do a gospel presentation in between games, or are you guys just walking around talking to people as they watch the game? Or
well, see, they're just doing VBS. So we're using like a lot like we do here. You know, kids all come in and we sing and do all that, and then they get split into groups. We use the rotation method a little more that like group does and stuff like that. So, but yeah, no, big gospel presentation. The last session of VBS usually that last day, and seen a lot of good response over the years. So,
what's the and it doesn't have to be South Africa; it can be anywhere. What's the biggest gospel response, or the most amazing? What's the time? I'm trying to think of a good way to ask this. What's the time God has given you a front row seat to just see the gospel just impact in an amazing way, maybe with a person or a group?
You know. If my youth group kids were here, they'd be like, aren't you going to talk about Thursday? Because they would know what we're talking about. And it wasn't necessarily, I mean, I think there was some gospel, some salvation involved. It was a lot of church kids though. But you know, just having this night where like the Holy Spirit just shows up, you know?
Right.
And we were on a mission trip. We're up in Eagle Nest, and I didn't do anything that we hadn't done a dozen times with them. We did some worship. We had some creative ways of doing Lord's Supper that not everyone could fly with, but my youth group kids could, that were just kind of a little more, just a little different, but just a little more free to kind of just let them spend some time with God and focus on these things. And we were doing some foot washing stuff with them, and it was just incredible. Like God just just pouring himself out there, like just showing us his spirit, who he was, and just really had an impact on them and on me. But it was a really cool night. We always had this couple. They were in their 70s and 80s by the time they were doing those trips with us. Their grandkids would come with us on some of those trips. Like they were up there, and I still remember him. And he was just she's a talker. Like we called her Mamaw. We stole her grandma name because we're all, and Mamaw's a verb too, because Mamaw she'll just talk your ear off. You got Mamaw, right? You know. And her husband is this like ridiculously smart, like crazy multiple PhD, MD doctor. And but super quiet. I would always just go in the corner and get the wisdom from the quiet one while Mamaw was being Mamaw. But even him, you know, like I still remember washing his feet that night and just like crying with him, like just over what God was doing and stuff. And so it's been really incredible. And then seeing some of those in one of my favorite South Africa ones specifically, I got to preach at this church meets in this backyard, and I didn't know where I was going. We usually don't even know before we get there. He split everybody that's willing to preach. Julius finds somewhere for you to preach. All the pastors and anybody that goes. And so I had just felt like, okay, well, I'm not supposed to preach on God. And he just kind of laid Philippians, which is kind of like my default. Like if I don't know what to talk about, what to do, I'm like, we're going to Philippians. That's my wheelhouse. That's my favorite spot, my comfort zone over here. I can do this all day. And so I was kind of doing some stuff from Philippians that day. And I get done, and this guy had shown up in the middle of service. And when I say the middle of service, when you get to a service in South Africa, especially backyard one, they're already going. They're praising, they're doing stuff. You're like, is this sound check? Is it? No, we're just having church. It's just like an all day affair. And because they'd be singing when we got there, and they keep singing after we left. Like we'd say bye, like we'd have this little send off from those kinds of churches, and they just go right back to worshiping because they're just there. Right. And time is a different concept there. But this guy had shown up like really, you know, we're in somebody's backyard, like plastic chairs. Like this is not an area, not a community that's real well-to-do or anything. But this guy shows up, and he's kind of dressed to the nines of them, like, and everyone's kind of like, oh, you could just feel like this is an important person. And find out that's like essentially the equivalent of like the mayor of that particular community had come, and this pastor had been asking him for months, and this was the day he finally shows up, and so after I'd gotten to preaching, they had him come up and just say something, and he gets up and he goes, God's been giving me this vision. He's been telling me and speaking to me, and I didn't know. And he's been talking to me about the verse you preached about from Philippians, and I'm just like, what is happening right now? It was really cool that, you know, God knew that I was going to be there that day, preach from this passage, and this guy was going to and just be impacted by that. And so that was really cool. But I could probably go on all day if I just kept sitting here thinking, you know. So
that's powerful. That's the perk of being the preacher, right? Is just sometimes you just get a front row seat, like you. Yeah. We're a hymnal place, right? And sometimes you just see it on somebody's face, and they close that thing and come walking, and you're like, oh wow, thank you. Yeah. I gotta watch this.
Yeah. You know, in the study Experiencing God, Henry Blackaby always talks about, you know, we're joining God in what He's doing, and like. I'm just trying to follow along. I'm just trying to keep up, you know, and sometimes you just get to be there for those cool moments. He's like, it's great.
You know, I don't need you, but you know what? I'm going to throw you a bone here.
I'm so good. I'm going to use you to do this, right? That's how good God is. Yeah.
That's one thing. Of course, I do a bivocational ministry, and there's always something that you can't make. So somebody from the church will make it, and then you stress and worry about, how am I going to be able to make this? How am I going to be able to do this? And then you end up not able to on some things, and it just works out. And God's like, yeah, we're good. I got you. So,
we're so the little kid trying to help carry the couch, right? Like they're going, and we think we're just doing so much, and God's doing all the lifting here.
Every bit of it.
Every bit.
But it sure is nice of him when he lets us just watch for a second.
You got it? Yeah, you're carrying it. Good job. Yeah.
Way to go, buddy. I wanted to talk to you about podcasting for anybody who doesn't know, that may be listening to this. When I started doing this, I have no clue what I'm doing. And Andy was gracious enough to answer a million texts and phone calls to help me with these different programs and mentor me here on this podcasting thing. How did your journey start with the podcasting?
Like I said, me and my friend Troy that do ours, we loved some of the subject matter of some of these other podcasts, just not some of the way they talked about it and went about them. And so we're like, we could do this ourselves. We could do this better. And we would spend whole car rides home, driving from somewhere, especially if I was driving like between Artesia and Roswell or something or whatever. Like that's like, all right, I'm gonna call Troy. I got like 30 minutes on the road. Like we're having these conversations anyway. I mean, literally one of ours, when we go watch a new movie and kind of just talk about it, we call it Corner Booth at Rex's is like the name for those episodes. Rex's is literally a restaurant where we had this booth that was in the corner where we go sit all the time after we went and watched a movie. Like we're just, naming it after what we actually did and just kick back those ideas. And so he did a whole bunch of research to find some stuff. And I'd started doing something. We were doing some video stuff here at the church, and I just wanted a microphone, just wanted a little better quality on something. So I had bought a little microphone to do that kind of stuff, to make a little better quality video stuff for things we're doing at church. And said something about, I bought a mic. And like a week later, he sends me a text like, hey, I bought a mic too. Are we doing this? Like we'd kind of kicked it around. And so we found a couple things like Anchor, the thing we, found that and was just like, all right, we're going to test this out. And we joke, we ended up redoing it. We did a test episode of the movie Willow. And the first one that we did, no one has ever heard. Like we buried that thing. Yeah. But we tested it out and found some ways, did a bunch of research on how to edit and figure out Audacity. And we just kind of fumbled our way through the first bit. And now we found our little rhythm. We crank our little episodes. So we've had to slow down as our kids got a little older and a little busier. We're both chasing band kids and choir kids, and his kids got even more things on their plate most of the time. And so we used to put out an episode a week. And the big thing, he works for the government. And so during COVID, he was working from home a lot, right? And got to continue that until about a year ago when it was like, all right, no more of that. So it's like, okay, we can't get away with him, kind of dabbling on the, I'm sitting at home. I'm on my lunch break for 30 minutes. I can do a little editing, and no, he's at work now. So we've scaled back a little to every other week on stuff, but it's allowed us to breathe. There was a little while there down the stretch of every week episodes where it was like, oh no, I got to edit another podcast. We'd try and come out with our episodes on Friday mornings, and it would be like Thursday night burning some midnight oil, getting some of those things clipped and ready to go. And so it's been nice to cut back, but no, we just kind of fumbled our way through a few different things and tried a few different ways of recording stuff that we've because we're not in, he's still in Albuquerque, and so we get to do all our stuff over Zoom. And one of the early lessons we learned was you can record on Zoom in a couple different ways. You can do it just on your computer, or you can do it on the cloud. And it's like, oh no, the cloud works much better, because if my connection screws up, it doesn't screw up your connection now. So because we were having podcasts where like my internet would get iffy, and I'd miss like 90 seconds of conversation that was all jarbled now. So
and then you'd have to go in and figure out how to piece that back together, or you just record another 90 seconds with your friend.
It depended on how bad it got messed up. Sometimes it was like, all right, we're just going to cut that whole section this time. The worst nights are the nights I forget to hit record at all, and that's happened 2 or 3 times where we do an entire episode and then get to the end and I go to turn off the recording and go, hey Troy. And sometimes those are usually our shortest episodes when we redo it, because we're like, we know all the points now. We know where we're both going. So we've had a rehearsal. Now this is a second draft. So
have you ever gone to that restaurant? Is that the type of place where you could go there and do one?
We could probably not get away with that. Rex, although he makes a great cheeseburger, is not. He can be a little grumpy around his place sometimes. A little, occasionally, not super, but I think he'd be like, what are you guys doing over here, if we were trying to record in the restaurant too much. And it's not a very big place either. Not super big. But it is literally across the street from, I could see Rex's from my office at Del Norte. And so nice. It hadn't always been there, but the last several years we were there, it had moved around, and there it was. So
I've got to ask you because I listen to it all the time, and I understand almost everything except for the Jeff Goldblum effect. What is that?
So we have all these actor categories that make
Yes.
up all these names. So Jeff Goldblum, you instantly know who Jeff Goldblum is, right? I mean,
Right.
you say
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum, you can picture him, you know who this actor is. How many Jeff Goldblum movies can you name?
Other than The Fly and Jurassic Park, probably none.
Right, and that's basically the
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum effect. Is like you had like one or two really big roles, and now you just play yourself everywhere that you go. Like
That
he's
makes
just
sense.
he's just Jeff Goldblum. Like the world, according to Jeff Goldblum, he's in. You know, he's just this recognizable person, and when you look at his career, you're like, you had like one hit movie. Like, where
Right.
did you come from? You have Jurassic Park. You know, and even The Fly is kind of a deeper cut for a lot of people. Anybody younger than us is like, what's The Fly? Like, they don't even know what we're talking about right now if they're under 30, you know? And so, yeah, we just kind of made up these, and we've added some, and that's been a big, that wasn't always there. Those actor categories especially have been a progression. And occasionally one we forget about because we'll go back and we'll be like, oh yeah, we forgot we added names to this over actor category award or something. So we screwed up. There's not always great continuity from episode to episode on some of our actor quality ones. We just added one in one we recorded. So there's a Jerry O'Connell acting category coming for you in a couple months
nice.
on one.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to that.
you can look forward to that. That's we already have Julia Stiles. Why didn't they make it? Now we have Jerry O'Connell. How did he make it? Like, why are you in all these movies? How did you get all these roles? How do we know your name so much? It's similar to Jeff Goldblum, but it's like, no, you actually are in all kinds of stuff, and we don't know why. So
And then the one you mentioned, the one that you did with your that you do with your dad. How I understand that he was doing things with COVID and you were too, but how did that come to be? Did he hear yours and say, "Hey, you know what? Let's do this"? Or did you say, "Hey, let me get in on this"?
that was a little more me approaching it, and partially. So he retired, and that's when we started doing the podcast. And so partially, it's all right. I'm here to be some of your outlet because you know, after 50 years of ministry, roughly, you know, it's all still there, and
Right.
it still does. And he still does stuff at their church. He's been lucky to get to they've gotten to stay at the church where he retired. Their youth pastor became the pastor, so they already kind of had relationships. So it's like, are you good if we're around? And most of the time it works okay. It's not always comfortable having the previous pastor in your church,
Sure.
but they're making it work all right so far. So it's kind of one of those things he can kind of scratch his ministry itch a little bit. And so I kind of threw that out to him when he was about to retire, and he's cut down. Like I said, he was doing like 5 days a week. He was doing video and Bible study stuff on Facebook, and he scaled down to one when he retired. And then we do the podcast 1 day a week, so that gives him a couple outlets, and they still lead a Bible study. So he's still got 2 or 3 little outlets most weeks to do some of that stuff. But that one's fun. It's so night and day between the two podcasts, because me and Troy, I mean, we're watching whole movies. We're taking like pages of notes and have all these outlines and all this structure. And me and my dad are like, hey, what do you want to talk about next week?
Yeah.
And then we just go. And I rarely edit a single thing on that podcast. That's just us talking for 30, 40 minutes, you know, and there it is. Okay. Unless my phone rings in the middle of it or somebody has like a really huge sneeze, I usually don't have to touch that one. So
Were either one of you guys a music guy, a worship pastor? Because y'all break down those songs like somebody who's in that world.
No. In fact, my dad will tell you he's one of the least musically talented people. Jesus loves him to sing, and that's it. Is kind of our joke. He is a very joyful singer. If my dad is in the room, you will know he's there worshiping. But no. I'm the least musical person in my own family. My wife teaches choir. My kids are super involved in stuff. And I'm like, I play the CD player. I play the iPhone. I can do that. But no, that's just, I mean, that's always kind of been a language that we enjoyed. That music was, especially in youth ministry, like music was always a big part of what we were doing, a big part of reaching, connecting with kids. And we're just weird, and we love music. We're just not we're not very talented at it. So
Yeah, I get it. I really enjoy the music ones when you start breaking it down, because I hear all these songs, but it's usually I'm driving down the road and you just kind of halfway hear it, And
Yeah.
it's like, oh man, that's pretty deep.
And we've done some fun ones. I like when we venture out sometimes too. Like, I mean, some of the obvious, Christian ones and stuff are really good. But we did Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles.
Oh, yeah?
One time and stuff.
Oh,
My dad's a
nice.
huge Beatles guy, and so we've had some fun with some kind of different takes on some stuff and finding Jesus in those too. So not that the Beatles intended it, but
Sure.
broken clocks are right twice a day too.
Yeah,
So
100%.
they're still made in the image of God. They couldn't help it. It leaks out every once in a while. So
Yeah, I get a kick out of that on your the Phileo podcast. Too.
Oh,
When
yeah.
we talk a spiritual
Whew.
concept or something.
Oh man. Yeah, some movies lend themselves perfectly to it, and it's super easy, and then other stuff, you're like, we're talking about Dumb and Dumber today. Let's come up with a spiritual metaphor from this. So that's something my youth group kids, it became kind of a challenge, because that's something we would do on like random, like presidents, random days off they had from school. We'd watch a movie, and I'd have some sort of, little spiritual lesson they could take from what we called movie parables. And so that was something they always kind of joked with. They're like, what movie? I was like, bring me a movie. Tell me a movie. I will try and find a metaphor for you. And so, one kid really thought he had me. He watched this movie Rubber, which is literally about a tire. This is not an endorsement. This is a dumb, but it starts off, and the whole opening monologue was about how meaningless the movie was. And I'm like, let's go read some Ecclesiastes, man. Come on, I got you. They thought it was gonna be this big challenge. I'm like, 5 minutes in, that one gave me its metaphor. So there's some fun ones though.
How do you feel about that media as far as spreading the gospel? Because you talk about things like that, and I always think when I listen to, especially a religious podcast, that I don't know if Paul would have had this kind of technology. I believe you could turn on your Spotify and hear him.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. When he talks about, like as long as the gospel gets preached, I don't care how, and so I think it's good.
What do you think about, why is it that this type of media, what do you think it is that resonates with people so much? Is it just that they're in your car with you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the accessibility is a lot of it. It's so easy now. That we can hear from everybody, can have opinion about everything. It's not always a good thing, but we can easily get stuff out there and people can find it. And so I think it's important. We use that phrase a lot in church. We're in the world, but not of the world. And I think that's one of the ways we can be in the world. It's just, we're available. We're there. Like we're putting this out there. As Paul says in Philippians, we hold out the word of life, in the midst of the darkness. And I think that's one of those ways we can do that, is that it's out there. It's not just, I think it's great when people come to church, obviously, and we get to share with them here. But I think it's even more important that we find ways to get the gospel out there, and just any way we can to get people exposed to it and just give them a taste. There was a pastor evangelist guy from the Lubbock area, I think, who used to have this thing about, on average it takes like 25 touches from the gospel before someone makes a decision. They're like little stuff, like little conversation, even something as little as like just a friendly interaction with someone that they know is a believer. 25 of those before they make a decision on average or whatever. And so part of the hope is that, hey, this can be one of those 25. And some of those, that's part of the reason why we do the spiritual metaphor things when we talk about movies. Those are especially fun. Anytime we do a Star Wars movie, we have this friend Calvin, who Troy has met Calvin in person now. But Calvin's like a friend of a friend of a friend who we ended up in a fantasy league with, we just got this connection. And Calvin has no relationship with Jesus, doesn't pretend to, doesn't tell us to, and yet he hops on, and anytime we're talking Star Wars, he's happy to get on with us. And it's like, all right, you get to listen to me talk about the gospel for 2 minutes now, because we're to the spiritual metaphors part. So it's always a cool thing, and we get to use something he already loves. So we get to pull out Star Wars and talk about Jesus with it. So that's always fun.
Where do you go on that? Is it because he's the chosen one?
Oh no, there's lots of fun things. It's hard because I could go for days about weird metaphors from Star Wars about things, but No, I don't dig in too deep on the Anakin being the chosen one.
Oh,
We try not to make Anakin Jesus comparisons. They get messy. So
My brother, my wife and I are big Star Wars fans, and my brother is not. So he likes to explain to me that they're space hillbillies. None of them know who's their dad.
kissing his sister and stuff. Yeah, you make plenty of jokes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of hillbilly references. I'm just not sure where the gospel references are. Who do you listen to as far as either a preacher or a podcaster or something like that? Who feeds you?
I really enjoy Tim Keller. And he's passed away now, but there's still a podcast out there that puts his sermons out there. Those have been really good. Francis Chan does new podcast stuff, but his books have been real instrumental. David Platt. Love reading C.S. Lewis. Have to do it slowly because it's C.S. Lewis.
Sure.
Like somebody will read like Chronicles of Narnia, like, what do you mean this? I'm like, Chronicles of Narnia flows, but have you read Mere Christianity? Okay, you got it. This is one of those like, okay, I got to read that again. Man, I probably more reading than listening. Partially when I'm a lot of stuff I listen to is just like I'm in the car and I'm going. So there's some good stuff there too, but. Reading is probably where I get most of the stuff that sticks with me better. But Keller's has been really good. Christianity Today does some interesting ones, and they do some like narrative things. Like they have one on like the satanic panic from the 80s that was just fascinating because I was a little kid, but like some of the stuff they talk about, like, oh, I can remember them talking about that. I didn't know what that was about because I was like 7 or whatever. But so those have been interesting. But there's just so much. Man, so much out there. It's just incredible. But then you see how much, here we are. We can do this pretty simply. It's kind of awesome that we have this kind of technology. We can share this kind of stuff. So came in very handy a few years ago when we couldn't meet together like normal. Be like, oh, we can still get you some stuff out and get people fed. So that was one of the things we were going through the Bible as a church, like over the course of a year, reading a book or two every week, depending on which books we were in, Psalms takes a while, but when you're like, hey, Jonah, okay, you can read Obadiah too.
And you were Zooming or Facebooking?
We met in person to talk about some of that, but then I had little devotions for the rest of the week I had little video. There were videos on Facebook, or there was a podcast. It was the same thing. I just dropped my videos into there and made a little podcast out of them too. So just stuff like that, just to making it more accessible for people is really cool. So,
I have a preacher question for you, and probably only people who are preachers might care. But when I go out of town, I like to be out of town on a Sunday, and I will always start looking for a Baptist one. But if I don't find one within about 10 seconds, I find either some Rollers or a Church of Christ. And I will stop and visit one of them. What's your go-to when you were out of town looking for a church?
Man, I'm trying to think, because it's been a while since I was out of town on a Sunday where we weren't with grandparents. And so when we're with them, and what's funny, my in-laws who live in Albuquerque, I was a youth pastor in Albuquerque for 13 years. They didn't come to our church. They went to another church, which was, they were already going there. They were involved there. We left, and like couple years later, they started going to Del Norte. And so I get to tell that, like, yeah, my in-laws go to church here now. Didn't come when I was a youth pastor 13 years, but now they're here. But so we love it, though, because we get to go to church with them and we get to see all of our old crew. So, most places, I'm trying to think of the last time I was somewhere out of town on a Sunday that I wasn't in Africa or with grandparents and stuff, or with like we went. My daughter had like a choir trip a couple years ago. We were gone on a Sunday, but we were with the tour. So I was at Six Flags SeaWorld on Sunday. One of those, I can't remember which one was Sunday. So I didn't get to make it anywhere because I was riding the bus with everybody else. I I remember as a kid we used to always hit up Calvary Chapel in Albuquerque just because it was kind of cool. Just like, all right, we can just be anonymous and just kind of hang out, and worship's really good. And I loved it because they had a separate kids church thing, and I'm like, cool. I don't have to go listen to what you guys listen to. I get to go over here. But no, I don't have any particular bends. I'm pretty open, pretty flexible though. I'd probably Google and be like, all right, where's the fun church in town? I want to go see what they're doing. So that's always a little fun. A friend of mine is the pastor at Catalyst in Artesia, Nolan, and we grew up together. We got in a fight in 3rd grade. It's one of our favorite stories to tell people. We're such good friends. We got in a fight. That's where we're really like brothers. So
Yeah.
but
that tracks.
I got to go surprise him one year. We took off. I took off. It was like the week of Thanksgiving or something. I'm like, I'm gonna take a Sunday off, but we're not going anywhere. And so we, popped in and just went to go check out Catalyst because he was still. That was after we first got here, and so he was still pretty new because they've been there about 10 years. So I usually end up somewhere where I know somebody.
Yeah.
Most of the time. So it's just how it goes. And if I'm anywhere in New Mexico, that's not hard after after 40 plus years of being because man. Mexico Baptist life is just shrinking all the time. It feels like there's always a connection somewhere. So
Yeah, I'll usually rely on the Google if we're far away.
Yeah.
We hit one time. It was in Seguin, Texas. We went for my wife's brother's wedding, and I was looking for one, and then I saw one. And I couldn't find anything on Google, but I saw one. It said West Side Baptist Church. And I said, perfect. And I went in there, and man, they were singing in Spanish, and they were talking in Spanish. I was sitting there. I guess the pastor saw me, and he walked over to where I was, and he kind of nudged me, and he says, "We're bilingual, don't worry."
We at Donorte we used to host the Spanish evangelism conference, like the Spanish portion of the evangelism conference that happened before the main part. And I was the youth guy, which at most churches means you're also the audiovisual guy for anything special that happens at your church. And so I would have to run like the worship slides and stuff in Spanish. And so I know what kind of meat I'm about to eat when I go to a restaurant. I want to know what I'm eating, and I can ask you where the bathroom is and stuff. But other than that, like I don't speak Spanish, but you learn a few words here and there, especially churchy words. I can follow along. Like, oh, if we're at church, he said Holy Spirit. Okay, he said okay, I got that word. Ooh, yeah, he said church. Iglesia. I can pick out a few words, but it was really fun trying to keep up with the power, the worship slides, the lyrics on the screen. I'm like, I think he said that. So one year there was a guy, he sat behind me, he just tapped me. He was helping me out.
We wound up at a WFR church. Well, we went there on purpose because it was on the route to the vacation we were going on, and I listened to those guys, but I'd never gone to a church service at a church across, and we wound up in that place. And talk about the music. I couldn't tell when one song started and the next one because there was no piano.
There's no music. There's just we're just singing. Okay, all right.
I mean, it was a great time, but man, the music kind of threw us off. But I will tell you on that trip, well, not that one, but on the one to Seguin, for some reason, we kept passing, I guess, I don't know if they had just done the road or what, but there was just boats randomly all over the side of the road that had broken down and the trailers were flat. And I was telling my wife, I said, this is a good sign. We're going to find a good church here. These guys are just like Peter. They
left their boats. 52 churches planted around town. All these guys just kept coming into town, dropping off their boats, starting a church. That's awesome.
What is your favorite passage or story in the Bible?
I feel like it changes a lot, but Acts 2 comes back all the time, especially like 42, 42 to 47, especially 42, that talks about, they devote themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayers. And Eugene Peterson, the Message, calls that, when he says the fellowship, he says the life together. And that's what we kind of ended up naming our student ministry in Albuquerque. Here at Calvary, we talk about being family together. We just shifted a little bit, let them kind of name themselves, and just what the body is supposed to look like, what the family is supposed to look like has always just been it's been my life in a lot of ways. That's just where, like I said, I was here opening the door for all those people coming in all the time. But church has been family. My parents met in North Texas. My dad was from Mississippi. We've never lived within 300 miles of a family member, biological family member. I've got a cousin. Well, now I got a cousin that lives in Colorado now. That's as close as we get.
Yeah.
And but I had church family. I had church family galore. I had more grandmas and aunts and uncles, and I'm an only child, and so everyone's like, did you ever get lonely? I was like, heck no, I had a whole youth group for siblings, except they all left, and then I got all the stuff to myself. So it was like the best of both worlds. And so that's what church has always been, that fellowship, that family, that life together. And so that's always kind of been a big one.
Yeah, you kind of have your own cheering section at a sporting event.
Oh gosh,
yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Man, when my wife and I got married, we had it was like 4 churches had to come to this, because we had the joint one of where we grew up and where we were then, but then I had we each had the ones we went to high school and stuff for, and so we had like 4 different good chunks of 4 different churches represented there. It was really cool. So.
Which is exactly what was intended when they were building it then. Yeah, like we're supposed to do life with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. How about a religious song or a hymn? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, a couple. If we're just talking hymn, "Take My Life and Let It Be" has always been big. You asked me if I was musical, and I was like, no, not really. Yeah. But I was a good church kid, so I was in musicals as a kid, because that's what you do, is in children's choir. And I got to play Little Salty. Mm-hmm. Did you ever hear Kids Praise? Or these crazy. He's a singing songbook. There were some drugs involved when they came up with this concept, I'm sure, at some point. But as a kid, I didn't think anything of it. And there's one particular, I think it's Kids Praise 6, where they build a time machine, because everyone could just build a time machine, even the singing songbook. And so through most of it, they're going back. They're meeting like Fanny Crosby and all these people that wrote these great hymns, but at some point he meets himself as a little songbook, and Salty and the little version of himself sing "Take My Life and Let It Be" together, and I got to be Little Salty and sing that with Salty. So that one always kind of just stuck, and I was the second verse, and so that one's always been kind of special. And then "How He Loves" by Crowder. It's really by John Mark McMillan, but Crowder kind of made it popular. Has always been had a really special place for me, just ministry wise. Working with students, that it came up a lot for us, was kind of a meaningful thing, and that's continued. That's a real common place, because just talked about how much God loves me, right. And that everything else around me can fade away. Like, it's all right. All these things can fade away when I think about how much God loves me, because it's okay. And so that's always been a real, for a long time now, been a real calming place. I remember we were kind of at a crossroads in our ministry there in Albuquerque, and feeling like, all right, it might be time to move. We'd even talked to a couple churches. One was out in California. I was already pricing my Disneyland annual pass. I was ready to, I'm gonna be just close enough. I can go hey, I'm off today. It's like an hour away. I'm gonna go ride Splash Mountain today, honey. I'll see you later. And God kind of pulling us away from that, and we ended up, instead of moving, we ended up buying a house. And all the best things that happened in our ministry happened after that. But we were actually in California going to a youth pastor conference, and my daughter was like 1, and we're sitting in the back of the room, and we're literally like in between sessions, we're like back in our hotel room, like looking at houses that our realtor's sending us, and like we're in the midst of all this kind of chaos, and just standing in the back of the room singing that song with a whole room full of youth pastors. Crowder was there leading and stuff, and just being blown away by, like, hey, this is how much you're loved, and this is how much everything's going to be all right, and I've got you. And so that's always been one of my favorites.
That's powerful. What can we do as a church to not only to get the gospel out there, but to show people that they are loved in that way through our education? What do you think is one of the best things that we can do as a church?
I think the personal relationships that people have are still the biggest. I mean, we and there's numbers to back it up. I mean, events can be great. You and I currently working on a really big event that we're all doing coming up in the fall. That's going to be awesome. But behind even big things like that are the biggest thing that you still see all the time is that, like, someone I knew invited me to church. Someone I knew shared the gospel with me. That, like, those personal relationships that we have with people, and just living that in the everyday, just showing people that. There was a kid in our youth group. Her grandma was just anti-church. All the anything you can go read online about why people shouldn't like church. She had read it. She had thought it. She had experienced it. She was very anti-religion, I should say. not necessarily Jesus. There's a book over there. They like Jesus, but not the church. Like she was kind of there. Like, yeah, this idea of Jesus, but you guys are all hypocrites and none of you do this. And she and I got along really well. She had actually adopted her granddaughter at one point when she was little, and then she moved. She lived out in Mountain Air though, so we sent the kid into Albuquerque to go to high school and stuff. But Gran was around all the time, and she comes up to me. It's probably when she graduated from high school or something. She goes, it's really frustrating to be around you. And we kind of had this playful antagonism thing between us. Anyway, I was like, well, yeah, it's not fun being around you sometimes either, Gran. And she kind of laughed, and she goes, no. She's like, a lot of believers I can be around, I can tell them all kinds of stuff and shut them up, but I can't shut you up. Like, you just do all this stuff you talk about. And I'm like, I wish I did all the stuff I talked about, Grant, but yeah, we try to do the stuff we talked about, and that's, when I got ordained, my dad got to do the charge for my ordination, which was really cool. And my father-in-law got to share as well, which was awesome. But, some of the things my dad talked about specifically, and there were things I already knew, things I'd seen, but it was just, reinforcing, like, transparency and authenticity, like, are just huge. Especially as a pastor, as a minister, but just as a believer, like this, just that openness. Like, we don't have it all together. We don't know everything, people are shocked. Do you get this? They ask you a question, you're like, well, you're like the pastor, and you tell them, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And some people are just blown away. They're like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm like, I'm not. Do I look like Jesus? I think he was shorter than me, but but just that openness. Like, I'm still figuring this stuff out too. Like, it's not, Paul tells us, follow me as I follow Christ. He's like, yeah, I'm going this way, but that's who you're really following, and pointing ahead to that. And sometimes I think we get lost there, that we want to have all the answers and be able to tell everybody all the stuff. And it's just like, I don't know much. I was blind, but now I see, and those personal stories I think are still the greatest evangelistic tool we have, and they're the one people can't argue with. I can't argue with you. This is your life. This is what you're doing. This is who you are. And so I think those are still the best methods. I think there's lots of cool things we do, and it's been a blast working with a whole bunch of other pastors to come up with stuff for our big one day evangelism thing. And so that's been really fun to just bounce ideas and get other things, because man, I can sit in my office by myself just trying to think up all kinds of stuff and going nowhere. I'm just a hamster in my wheel sometimes in here, going nowhere. So.
Yeah, I've got my church praying for it now. They sent out that deal, and it says, you pray for these things. And it says some people are going to fast on Wednesdays. So I got the whole church excited about it. I said, make sure that you post these things up somewhere in your house. I said, do not put it on your fridge if you're fasting on Wednesday.
Well, I'm supposed to fast today, and then they're just, that's good.
Yeah,
that's funny.
We're praying that God will do something big during that. In our prayer, we say, if we get one, man, it's more than worth it. But we're praying for a lot. I think what an awesome idea that they had, that all these churches are going to descend into one place.
Yeah. And it's been awesome just to work with. I'm always impressed here in Roswell that we have pretty good. We do those quarterly prayer things, which I love. Like, especially because I'm the pastor of a Southern Baptist church. Like, I'm good, but I'm not like Southern Baptist. We used to use phrases like Baptist work in the state of Mexico, and I'm like, can we not talk about just Can we talk about Jesus work? Like, can we expand beyond just our little groups? And I feel like we do a lot more of that now. But especially down here, like that's been really cool to just kind of cross some of those lines, because you go overseas, you go to the countries like there's Catholics and there's Protestant kind of stuff, but the evangelical people are over here and the Catholics are over there, and they get along okay, but that's kind of the only distinction. Everybody else is just kind of like, you're all in one big old pot, you're just, and here sometimes we can be so rigid with some of those lines that we draw that, we're missing out. But I'm glad that we don't miss out as much around here, and we get together and pray and worship together. It's awesome times.
Yeah, we've done that a little bit. Well, they're gone now, but we used to do that with the Presbyterians.
Yeah.
Down the street, we would split up the back door and things like that.
That's awesome.
I mean, they're preaching the same Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, we just have a few silly things that don't matter that we.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going to have sections when we get up there. Like, oh, you're with the Presbyterian group. You're with the Baptist. Y'all are down there by the kitchen. You know, and that's no. We're not gonna do that.
I feel like we're in a unique place here in the valley to do that, because it just seems like there's more contention when you go somewhere else. And every time you hear somebody speak at the convention, and you know, when we do our business meeting, it's real quick. They'll be like, "Well, man, I was just in name your state, and they fought for 3 days."
Yeah. Yeah.
over this. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I still remember when, you know, our brothers to the east here in Texas split into, you know, two different whole convention, you know, and that's when Dr. Crone was still around, and you know, like I think that said a lot about some of the leadership we had and some of the leadership we have now, you know, in our state. They're like, all right, you know, there's some big issues other places. We're gonna try and focus past that and kind of let's focus on the Jesus, and we'll deal with what we need to deal with, but we don't get lost in it.
And we have such a leader too in Steve Blue. Like,
Yeah.
Man, that guy has a heart for the lost.
And a heart for New Mexico churches, man.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm betting you get the same type of. He calls me like just randomly, just hey, we're praying for you. I'm like, Steve Blue's on my answering machine here at church all the time. Send me a little card.
Yeah, it's awesome. He has such a heart for the lost. Were you there on the last night of the evangelism conference?
No, I had to come back early.
Man, he had all of us on our knees.
Yeah.
Up at the pulpit.
That's awesome.
It was powerful, and he gave a charge to go out and get New Mexicans, and then he threw out some numbers, and then reminded us that is a huge number. He says, but 2,000 years ago, some guys did bigger numbers than that, and they didn't have an air-conditioned pickup truck. They did that on foot. So go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, and yeah, I'm loving this whole one day concept of and us working together. Just not. I mean, it's already been a blast working with just our group of pastors here in the valley and stuff, getting together to dream and plan and hoping for 1,000, 2,000 people to come out and from all over the state, and it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, but that is gonna be awesome. Well, Andy, I thank you for your time.
Oh,
and
it was a blast, man.
I appreciate it. Anytime you ever want to do anything else, holler, and we'll get it done. I'm trying to start a tradition on this podcast, if you want to where the guest on it closes us in prayer.
Absolutely. Father, I thank you for this time. Just getting to spend with my brother Josh here and just talk about you and your word and just life and what it looks like to live life with you and to do life together and do that in our churches and our ministries. And I just thank you for the opportunities that you've given us and will continue to give us to share your love with people. And I pray that this is one of those ways, one of those things you'll use. And we thank you for it. It's a blast getting to do it too, and just sit down and talk with people about stuff and share some of those things. And we just hope that you can use that as well. These meager tools we offer to you sometimes that you've given us, and that we just place them in your hands, because in your hands they do amazing things. And so thank you for the ways that you work and move, and just the way that you love us. We ask all in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.